Hey, I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name's Tony. I'd like to welcome everybody to Thursday Night Big Book Zoom meeting of the program of recovery laid out by the first 100 men and women in our basic text. How we open this meetings with the third step prayer. What do we need for a good life and a good meeting? God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, the victory over them. May I bear witness to those that would help thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. All right, we're at an exciting time tonight. We're looking at step 11. We're going to get right into it. So, you hear a lot of stuff in the fellowship, right? That's why, and we challenge everything we hear. That's just what we do, right? We go, what does the book say, right? Not what the fellowship says or what we heard, what got passed on by our sponsors or the catchphrases and stuff like that. So we tend to make a lot of people upset. I know nobody's ever gotten upset in this group by this meeting or what we said or challenged, but it does. Like a lot of times we hear something and people start arguing with us like, oh, I can't believe they said that. But what we get our information from is the book and how it's put together and how it's kind of and the purpose of it. So when we look at step 11 on the wall, you want to read step 11 up there? What does it say?
Sought for prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood it, praying only for His knowledge of His will for us and His power to carry that.
So when you kind of look at that and how it works on page, what page are we going for? We're going for, I'm winging this here, page 59. It says like a summary of a conclusion. So when we look at, here are the steps we took, we're looking at their process. They're giving us a summary of what they did. Have we done it yet? At this stage of the game, they're saying this is what we did, this is what we suggest as a program of recovery. And the outlay of this course of action starts from the beginning of the book, actually the title page of the story of how many thousands of men and women who have recovered from alcoholism. A lot of people like to argue about their ideas, right? Have we asked you what you think so far? Have we asked you your opinion? Have we asked you your belief system? You know why we haven't asked you? Because we don't give a shit. No, I'm just joking. Let's just start it off. I like to, oh my God, he said that out loud. No. because we all have different ideas. And so what we're trying to do is find a basic fundamental structure and that we could build from. Right? A lot of people try to pass on their ideas, their belief system, their idea of God, and that's not our job to do. Our job is to help people find a basis of starting that they could have the same experience that's put together by the first 100 men and women. And so when we say stuff like, what's the collective understanding? People start going, what? The collective understanding? Can I give you my understanding? No. So step one, there's a collective understanding, is right? When we went through it, they said, here's step one as we experience it, we understand it. This is ours. So how should we help our reader to determine whether they are one of us? So in order to find out whether we are one of them, we have to understand what they're talking about, yes? And then we diagnosed ourselves based on their experience, right? Because step one, they talked about the phenomenon of craving. But how do you explain the phenomenon? They said, well, this is what it looks like. We said, oh, yeah, I've exhibited that. And then when they talked about the obsession, they explained the obsession, right, as this idea that we could control and enjoy our drinking. How many people thought they had a consequence problem here? Then we find out it's because we have this allergy, right? And the great obsession is that we could control and enjoy our drinking. There's got to be some way. And how they explain the obsession is on page 31, right? By every forms of self-deception and experimentation to try to prove ourselves exceptions to the rule. Therefore, not alcoholic. Therefore, not having the allergy, the component of the phenomenon of craving, right? So drinking beer, only eliminating the number of drinks. So that explains the obsession. Right? And when we understand that to diagnose ourselves, either we look back over our drinking history or they say step over to the nearest bar and try some controlled drinking. Because the delusion that we're like other people presently maybe has to be smashed. So how we smash that is by learning. Right? So I kind of went, well, so that's why the obsession is a pre-step one condition. Because if you still think you can control and enjoy your drinking, have you done step one yet? If you still want to drink, right? And you think there's a way of getting away with it. Have you done step 1 yet?
No.
So if you have done step 1, yes, I have this condition, and I still want to drink, now you moved into insanity. Well, that would be insane to drink after what you just said happened to you and all the experiences you had, and you still want to drink. Well, then you might need more help than we can offer, right? So that's why the idea, how many people has had the idea, man, I really want to, but went to a meeting, phoned somebody and all that stuff. You work through it, right? That's not the same idea as the phenomenon of the malady that centers in the mind, the suddenly, right? They talk about this thing that happens in the mind that places us beyond human aid. And that's the story of relapse. That's step 1. You hear people say, relapse isn't a part of my story. Then either you don't understand what we mean by relapse, or you don't have our story, right? Because our story is our inability to keep ourselves sober. You wouldn't be in a big book study if you can keep yourself sober. How's that? You'd be in a 12 and 12 study, right? Talking about Bill's experience, hoping it'd be your experience by not doing what he did to get it. Right? Anyways, that's how to make friends. Or reading page 417 every day. We'll get that out of the way for my friend Ray there, because he's always disappointed when I don't mention that page. So they talk about here, through this course of action, they've basically entered a relationship that was an idea, right? Presented in step 3, that I can have this relationship. Well, it was presented as the solution in step 2. So the solution in step 2 is I need to have a psychic change or a spiritual experience to have this component of the mind removed where it no longer exists. And that component is alcoholism, right? This mental, what they call the alcoholic mind, right? As long as I have an alcoholic mind, I will continue to drink, yes? So I have to have a psychic change or spiritual experience. If I don't have a psychic change or spiritual experience, will I know when I'm going to drink again? That's the baffling feature of alcoholism. You said to myself, Self, what do you think? You think you're going to drink? Never again. Well, here's a chip just in case, not a plaque. We don't have no plaques, right? We hand out chips. You ever been to a meeting, you hear the chip fall? Bing, 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 bing. That's how fast sobriety goes. That's why we hand out chips. It's a reminder. Remember, we deal with alcohol. Cunning, baffling, and powerful. Yes? The most important part of that statement is remember we can't remember. Remember? Right? Because if you could remember, if you knew when it was going to happen, I'll just apply the steps then, right? Who would do that? Oh, I feel here comes alcoholism. Beep, beep, here I come. Right? It's not in the parking lot anymore. It's just come into the building. Nobody move, nobody gets hurt. and so what happens, they talk about it as this thing that parallels with our sound thinking. They call it a phenomenon on page 37, an unexplainable event. Yes? Because you ever try to explain your relapse to somebody? It's even nuts to you after a while. You're explaining it. You sound like a little bit of a whack job. How many times have you done? Like when I explained it to my wife, she says, how long were you in and out? I said, 11 years. She went a little panicky. I seen the look of concern on her face, right? I said, but I've undergone a course of action, and now I have a daily reprieve. I no longer suffer from that condition that I agreed to in step 1. What I have is a relationship with something greater than me that's kept this condition at bay. I'm not cured of alcoholism. What I have is a daily reprieve. Does that kind of make sense? And we read that last week. Contingent on what? On my relationship, right? And so how do I build this relationship, which was an idea in step 3, which was presented as a solution in step 2, right? Step 2 is the course of action, is it not? So the confirmation of the idea of the solution being presented in step 2 through this course of action, right? The confirmation of that is what step? 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. What's the purpose of the steps? Is to have the spiritual awakening. But as the result of this relationship that we cultivated through this process, right? What this book is about is enable us to find a power greater than ourselves, which becomes a personal experience to ourselves, right? That's what this book is about. Its main object is to enable you to have this experience, to find this power that we've already found. that it becomes personal to you. That's what this book is about. Its main object is to enable you to find a power greater. So what's this whole thing about?
Finding a power greater than ourselves.
But where it becomes personal, where you have an experience with it, where it moves from an idea to an experience. A lot different. Anybody? Well, how many people's had relationships with people that they didn't know they were in a relationship with? How many people's had one-sided relationships here? Crushes, or you think, oh my God, back in my day it was posters. Oh, she's so beautiful. Now you got all this stuff. We're not even gonna go there, but it's kind of. I kind of missed the hump there, but we'll leave. No pun intended. We'll leave that alone. So what happens is this idea, right, of this decision to have this relationship. The confirmation of that would be step 11, wouldn't it? Because step 3 is an idea. We go through this process. Now I'm starting to have some form of a relationship. Does that kind of make sense? So all the way through here, in the doctor's opinion, he says this message has to have depth and weight. So we see where it starts taking place. It's deep down within. Where did we learn that? On page 55, yes? And all the way through here, they talked about in the spiritual appendix, all our members have tapped into an inner resource of strength, power. They've got access to this thing. It's like the old dials. Remember those old radios where you had to push the buttons? And then they still had to tune it in? So this was kind of like that. It's like, oh, there it is. There's the station. And the rest of the steps are about tuning it in on a daily basis. Right? And that's what this is. It's kind of like that. So we're the receiver, somewhere there's a transmitter, and it's this creation or whatever you want to call it, creative intelligence, power, or whatever. The wording is quite optional, but the idea is lack of power is our dilemma. Yes? We had to get power. Whose understanding is that? Is that the collective understanding?
Yes.
So we need to all agree to that basis, right? Because the fundamental, do I believe or am I willing to believe that there is something greater than me? It's hard to do, yeah, since we're all that in a bag of chips, right? We were talking about that earlier, right? The guy at a football game. Hey, Pete! Guys looking around. My name's not Pete! Right? Sitting in the field. Anyways, moving on. So we find here, you'll see what I'm talking about here. So on page 63, we make this decision. Page 64, we find out what has to happen of the removing of these blocks. Then it introduced us down here to the human condition, the perplexity of what's causing our problems, right? The spiritual malady is the derivative of the resentments. So we shall consider it as common manifestations, how it exhibits itself, our failure, what are the things in ourselves which are defeating us. So the first thing was resentment, right? And the purpose of that recipe through the book was to master resentment through awareness, through experience, and through prayer. And redirecting our ideas and looking at it differently, where it comes from, and the application of being free of it. Page 67, we learned how to pray, and how do we look at other people. They, like ourselves, were spiritually sick too. It didn't say they, like ourselves, were alcoholic. Right? So we see that this sickness that we've incurred is not actually alcoholism, is all our problems piling up on us from not dealing with them all those years of drinking. Right? It's like when the debt collector phones me, he says, "Hi, I understand you're alcoholic." Says, "I understand you have some bad debt from being irresponsible." Right? Well, it was my alcoholism. No, it was you being irresponsible and spending your money somewhere else. I know none of you fine people has had those problems, right? Is Tony in there? Why? We have a warrant. Why? Moving on. And then we found out fear, right? And what we learned is a recipe here, which is so important, because the recipe that we learned here is the acknowledgement of a shift, of an internal shift of energy inside of ourselves, where we start becoming instinct-based instead of spiritual-based. And it's kind of interesting when you start doing that exercise, and they say perhaps there's a better way of trusting and relying on God, right? And now for the first time it explains what's God's will for us. is to play the role he assigns. What's the assignment? Well, if you're here, what would be God's assignment for you in the here and now?
To participate.
To be here. Right? But some of us, we're so important, we got other things to think about while we're here. Right? That's that self-centeredness. Right? My brain goes, let them continue the class. I got some things to talk to you about. And you're up there, oh my God, and the Stephen King movie started, and you're in the front row with popcorn, and everything's changing and nothing's changed. You're sitting here going, hanging on like you're on a roller coaster. It's like, hey, come back. Right? You'll find that funny. And later. And then we get into conduct, which is really interesting. And they say we treat this as any other problem. It starts to teach us how to meditate, how to redirect our thinking, how to incorporate prayer, how to incorporate the right thought and energy, and to work toward it, how to see when we're falling short of the mark, and what to do with it. The idea in step 4 of working with other people. Well, the steps are in order for a reason. You can't start working with other people. Well, if you want to save your ass, you better get a handful of life jackets and get back in the lifeboat and go start helping some people. Well, what about me? I haven't done all the steps yet. Well, you're not going to finish them with that attitude. You better get busy. Right? Go set some chairs up. Show up half an hour before a meeting. See, and don't think about what you're going to say the whole meeting. Try to participate. Anyways, we'll leave that alone. So, then we get to 71, which is the foundation. Step 4 is the foundation for step 11. People lose their shit when you say that. Well, what's the purpose of step 4? Is to remove the blocks, yes? Is to start this relationship with this power, yes? Where you start to have your own experience. You're seeing, oh my God, when I apply prayer and these things, I'm starting to get some relief. And when I actually bring the right idea in, my conduct starts to get in alignment where I'm not hurting other people or myself. Oh my God, this seems to work. How does it work? I don't know, but it works. Anywhere did it say, do you understand how it works? No. Because it's a phenomenon. It's an unexplainable event. You mean when I do this, and this happens? Yes. It's like when you add 2 colors, it creates another color. I don't understand that. Right? There's a glass of water. You take 2 different colors and you put it in the glass and it creates another color. Isn't that kind of mind-blowing? Or is it just me? I think it's I used to lick window. A lot of window pain. But that's another meeting. Okay, so whoa, look at the lights. So what happens is that this relationship starts to start, and we don't understand it, but the power of prayer starts to be, there's something to this. And which is interesting, Dr. Silkworth said, even though you may remain to scoff, we hope you remain to pray. Because there's something about that. There's something, every one of us, somewhere in our story, said there's got to be something different. Help me. Anybody ever say that? There's got to be that Bill had it the second time in treatment. And then life started producing circumstances to allow him for change, which is pretty interesting when Abby showed. So the power of prayer, right? Not having attachment to it and allowing things to show up, which is really interesting. In step 11, you'll see how that starts to unfold as we do our 9s. So it's pretty amazing to move past your own thinking and attachment to being open to how the universe, this power, will start to arrange things in your favor. Right? Remember, and we agnostics, when these people talked about their experience, right, the people they were talking to thought their cheese and cracker weren't on the same plate. When we said God made these things possible, we only smiled like, oh boy. Is there anybody else here we can talk to? Is there somebody with the experience of applying self to self that gets the same result? No, right? So when we hear of these promises, they sound extravagant, don't they? When we hear people talk about certain things, they sound so far-fetched, it can't be true, but yet here you are sitting here sober. Maybe it's not that far-fetched, right? So we're very limited in our thinking, yes? Would people agree to that? And a lot of times moving past that, so we limit what's available to us by the limitations of our own thinking. So if you're open to this, to what was available to you, what would be the only limitation to receiving what was available in life? Ourselves. It'll always be ourselves. But if you're open to seeing God's fingerprints on things, then it opens up a whole new world, the fourth dimension. Right? Where it talked about it in the contract on page 63, he'll provide all that we need. We have a new employer providing all that we need if we keep close to him and perform his work well. What's the closest they're talking about? The ritual of all these burning incense and getting on it.
Conscious contact.
In here, the shifting from the instinct-based to a consciousness of how many people feel the shift? When you're in fear, anxiety, anybody, right? And then you find that place of that door within inside of you where you step in the spiritual realm, you kind of get the prayer, the meditation, the coming back to the moment, the center moving from the peanut gallery into the vast energy that's available. There's a shift. And every religion, everybody talks about this thing, tapping into this inner thing. If you went into the middle of the Congo with these people who had no contact with any civilization whatsoever outside of their own tribe, they would have the same thing happening within their tribe. They'd have a ritual where they believe they tap into something that allows something to happen. It's pretty remarkable, this thing that's deep down in every man, woman, and child. So we need to access it. So I don't know where I'm going with this. So anyways, I kind of went, okay, God, where are we going with this? And God said, you just trust me and we'll take you there. I said, okay, but they're looking at me strange. It's okay, they do that. They do that every week. At least online they can mute. Here you guys are like, holy shit, this guy must have done a lot of something. 35 years, you say. Okay, so page 71. We hope you are convinced now that God can remove whatever self-will has been blocking you off from him. If you have already made a decision and an inventory of your grosser handicaps, you've made a good, what's that big word? Beginning. That being so, you've swallowed and digested some big chunks of truth about yourself. Yeah, some of that stuff you choke on, eh? Oh, boy. Anyways. So then it confirms what this is all the way through here. You ever go on a long trip? And all the way through there, you say, okay, I'm going to Toronto. All the way through there'll be signs saying how far you are and where you are. You're here on this map, and this is how far you got to go. That's what the book does. It says this is where you are, and we're still moving forward. Like keep going, right? And so they talk about on the next page, just in case you forgot now that you're starting to feel better, it says here, having made our personal inventory, what shall we do about it? Ready? We have been trying to get a new. So whatever you had going on before wouldn't be enough to sustain you. We're trying to get a new experience. And that's what the fourth step was about. We're starting to get our own experience with what these people were talking about, right? A new relationship with our Creator. Because if your understanding and your relationship was sufficient, you wouldn't need to do the steps. If you were able to turn your will and life over to the care of God in step 3, would you need to do anything else? If you were able to do it. Come on. No one's participating, everybody looking down. If you could turn your will and life over to the care of God, as we understand it, would you need to do anything else?
No.
So obviously the idea that we formulated in our belief or our conception isn't enough. I need a new experience. That's enough to get me started, but it's not enough to keep me here. That's why your conception in step 2 won't sustain you through this process. Ooh, got silent. Quiet on there too? Okay, so a new relationship with our Creator and to discover the obstacles in our path. We will continue to do that. We have admitted certain defects. We already know what those things are to block us off, that defeat us. Resentment, fears, conduct, and harm. Yes? Pretty simple. Can't be that simple. That's simple. They're not going to Shanghai you. So 76, it talks about here, the 7-step prayer is a confirmation of our 3rd-step prayer, right? Of who's going to be our director. Right? Who's going to be our employer? Who's going to be the father? Who's going to be the agent? Who's going to be the director? So we're going to be in a place of receiving and acting on. Is that that's our position? I'm going to receive and act on. And sometimes maybe it's good to take some stuff up with a spiritual advisor, because some of us get some really weird ideas about things. Oh, look what God sent me. I think we're in love. Anyways, yeah, the money's in it. Anyways, we'll leave it alone. I'm sorry with a lawyer. Okay, so here we go. When ready, we said something like this. Page 76. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. That means you shouldn't be concentrating on you anymore. If you're still the fundamental concentration of your recovery, you've missed something. It's a shift. There's a shift that happens. Good and bad. So if you're thinking of all the bad shit you're doing, who are you concentrating on?
Me.
Who's not involved?
God.
And if you're thinking about how great you are, who's also not involved? Yeah, you're in a meeting talking about, I like to thank me, and I like to thank me, and I like to thank me. Been working on my triggers, my defects. Look how great I'm doing. Yes, look how great you're doing. Yes, some of my old behaviors are coming up. Mama, shut up. Anyways, moving on. That's all pre-step. So what we're moving into is the second stage recovery. First stage recovery, it's all about who?
Me.
Yeah. Right? Second stage recovery is all about our relationship. This is what but it's hard for us. Because what's our favorite topic? Me. Right? Right? It's like we've been singing, anyways, long before that. Me, myself, and I. Okay, so I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. It's not my problem. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me, what's that word again? Strength as I go from here to do your bidding. Amen. We have then completed step 7, reconfirming this thought. And just in case you forgot what this was all about, when we look at 8 and 9, it says here, our real purpose. Ready? The big word that most people leave out when they say it. Listen, when people say this, they leave this word out, and it's what the key to this whole sentence. Without this part, they miss it. Right? Page 77, our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people around us. When can we do that? Next week? Now. So see how remove the blocks, our concentration on something greater than ourselves, right? Our real purpose to be maximum service to God and the people, to fit ourselves. I need the instructions on how to do that. Step 7, remove the things to do your bidding. If I'm able to live in the moment, how much more happier will I be? If I'm able to be here and be of peace and be of service. If I'm at work and being able to be an employee, how happy will my employer be? How happy will I be because I'm in the moment? Ready? How happy will everybody around me be? We'll leave them out of it for now. If the people around you are miserable, we'll leave that alone right now. All good to see you. Yes, it is. Okay, so we're moving through this. And what's interesting is here, when we get to the promises, it talks about this phase, and we'll suddenly realize. That means something's been to suddenly realize. Is like anybody ever look for something and it's in your hand? I was like, where are my glasses? They've got to be somewhere around here, looking all over, and they're on my head. Like sometime at work, I'll be looking for something I put down. I think I put it's in my hand. Anybody see my tape measure? You mean the one in your hand? Yeah, okay. So sometimes you realize this thing that's been happening has been happening a lot longer than you suspected it. There's something been going on. By the time you realize it's like, hey, everybody around you will realize. Where did they first talk about that was in the spiritual appendix, right? They talked about the people around you will be more aware of the change than you are. Before we were going around trying to tell everybody how much we changed. I know nobody's guilty about that here. And everybody's like, we're waiting. They're waiting to see what you're talking about. And then all of a sudden when we change, people around us, kids, family, loved ones, employers, everybody. Something different about that person. Something going on with them. Right? The anxiety when you show up is lower. Right? When you leave, there's a bit of unhappiness instead of happiness. My mom used to say, we never needed the police before you showed up. What do you mean? Nothing. Put the table down. Anyhow, so it says this thought. We covered that. We've entered the world of the spirit. So when you look at the dynamics of this, the first time they mentioned that was in step 5. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. We're having it. That's the whole purpose of 4 and 5, isn't it? Yes. How many people are here right now? Yes. So the way the book's designed is it's not 3 months later. You finished your 5. You look at 6 and 7. You read through 8 and 9. Right? It says right? And it talks about the promises coming true if we're willing to work for them spiritually about this phase of our development. We'll be amazed before we're halfway through. Are we halfway through it yet because we just read it? So really, technically, we haven't started it, but we read through it. We're preparing. We're preparing ourselves to go out into what? To be of maximum service to God and the people around us. Now it's about the people around us, allowing them healing, allowing them peace, allowing to make amends in their lives where they can find peace, happiness, and contentment as a result of the things that we did. Oh, I never thought of it that way. Right? Because some of us who have made amends to people who feel, a lot of people become angry because they feel safe to express the hurt, the pain, the stuff they carried, and to be able to listen without being a doormat. We cover that, and to find our peace, allow them to have a different experience from our reaction is pretty powerful stuff. So anyways, it talks about we've entered the world of the spirit. Our next function is a growing understanding and effectiveness of what? We've just entered the world of the spirit. Our next function is growing understanding and effectiveness of what?
World of the spirit.
Yeah, the 4th dimension. Now we're talking about how they end trudging the road of happy destiny. Anybody read it? We hear it all the time, but people don't understand what it's really saying. We've moved into the second fellowship. We've moved into the fellowship of the spirit. We've moved into the realm without realizing it that we're more connected on an internal basis to everything around us. You ever home in on some people? Your spirit sees something in them, and then you just find that they help you, they see something about you, they know all about you before you even say anything. It's pretty interesting what happens at an internal, because I don't think our minds are designed to understand what the spirit already knows. We place too much time on logic, but when we open up to that, it's like a whole computer realm, right? It opens up a whole database. Right? And it's pretty wild when you intuitively start tapping into this. You start getting answers and things that kind of is a little mind-blowing. To go here, stand here, do this, do that. And it may sound kind of weird, but that's what we're going to get into, an understanding and effectiveness of this spiritual connection. We're moving away from the Neanderthal meat-eating, knuckle-dragging, gathering to a spiritual experience. We're going to evolve from that instinct-based living into how we were designed to be as a human race. Pretty wild, right? And wouldn't it? How many people would rather barbecue or eat your fresh kill in the field? We've evolved. Well, that's what it means to evolve. A dog will always be a dog. You get trained it, but it will always never move past being a dog. A cow will never move past, and same with a horse. Those certain things will never move past being those things. Human, we've evolved past the way we started. Pretty wild when you think of it. I've never seen a horse go by in a car yet. you know, some of us still hanging on to the peanut, but we'll leave that alone. Okay. That's how they catch monkeys, right? Anyways, moving on. I will not let go of this. No, don't you hang on. It's your right. Okay, so then give us a warning here. We're moving into is what we need to obtain is this daily reprieve. Step 10 is an overview on what the whole thing looks like and what we're hoping to achieve. Yes? And the warnings, right? It's easy to let up on the spiritual program and rest on our laurels, past achievement. How many people has done that? I'm feeling good. I can relax now a bit on, don't need to go in my home group. I can relax a bit. Come on. How many people has done that? And then slowly comes the pain. And then we go, because we're not doing the exercise that we're doing, we embrace the pain. Let's culture it. Let's add water to it. Close the shades. It only grows in the dark. Where's that couch? Get horizontal. Where's the ice cream? And watch the phone ring. It's the sponsor. Somebody you know. Don't answer it, because it's going to take a lot of work to work on this depression. Anybody? Because you can't be depressed and mobile. How many people's you can't do it. It's pretty hard to be depressed on your feet, going to help somebody, going to a meeting, like everybody's trying to interfere with that. Leave me alone. I'm working on cultivating misery. Okay. Anyways, I'm back again. Recalculating. No. So then 85. Much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction from him who has all knowledge and power. All knowledge and power. If I could tap into that, what would my life look like? How many people are amazed with Facebook? Well, you can spend all the time on, got nose prints all over your screens. Right? How many people are amazed with their phone gadget? Come on. It's been 10 minutes since I've been on there. What's changed? We're connected to the world. It's pretty amazing that you could phone here right now. I can phone my buddy in Iran on the other side of the world and he'll answer it. Hello, and we talk like he's sitting right there. Like, is that not mind-boggling? You could go on Zoom meetings like we're having now, people from all over the world sitting around. Like, that's kind of mind-boggling. Right? And the more we learn, the more we tap into this or these things that are available, the more we grow in understanding and effect. Yes? You go from your phone to a computer to more knowledge, and you're growing in understanding and effectiveness. Yes? It's like I remember my daughter laughing at me. I said, hey, don't laugh at me. I taught you how to use a spoon. You can show me how to use how to unlock my phone. See, we laugh, but now we learn, picture, thumbprint. We learn, see how, but when we look at it that way, like my knowledge is quite vast. Now they're saying we could do the same thing, but this is on a spiritual level. This is the connection that connects us to everything. Oh, wow. What's the only limitation to it? Ourselves and my mind block, right? Because it's natural human that we want the answer before we pray about it. That way I can bring it to God. I found an answer. Do you mind looking after this? Here's the list of things I've been working on. You're kind of taking your time there, pal. Anybody? Come on. Right? And how many people's here has thought about God's will, thought about it all week, and kind of went, well, I don't know how he's going to take care of this. I've thought about it all week. With our limited mind. So, here we go. If we have carefully followed directions, this is the pivoting point. You know what a pivoting point is? Is in the movie industry, we have something, we get it to a certain height, and then the weight balances itself. And then once it gets past a certain point, it starts moving the other way. It has its own momentum. Is that kind of, it's like a car that gets stuck. So this is kind of like the same thing. We've gotten to a certain point. Now we're going to move into a momentum of moving in a different direction. And the application of self has brought you so far. But we need to move farther. Because to stay stagnant where we are isn't enough to sustain us. It's not enough battery power. It's enough to get the car started, but it's not enough to sustain it. You need a generator to keep the car battery juiced. Does that kind of make sense? That's the same like us. We got certain amount of power, certain amount of experience to get us to a certain point. Unless we cultivate that, we're not going to have the longevity because we're looking for longevity now. Long term, I'm hoping to leave this planet sober. Like, I never want to go back to what I came from. And the only way to do that is to sustain this relationship, because that's the life jacket. I'm never going to learn how to swim. I'm always going to need a life jacket. You can laugh at me all you want, but I can stay in the water a lot longer than you. Right? I can swim a lot farther than you. I can sustain, right? We're out in the ocean. You won't be laughing at me now, will you? Can I share that life jacket with you? No. I'm sorry. But, you know, that's what it is. So what we've developed, we're cultivating this thing that we'll depend on. And I'm okay with that, because my life with it is far greater than my life without it. And I don't need nobody to explain that to me. Right? And I don't apologize for God either. Right? And we talked about that earlier. For it's like having somebody here, oh, this is Brian, he saved my life. Yeah, I'm kind of embarrassed to talk about him. It sounds crazy, right? This is Brian, he saved my life. Pulled me from a burning building. He's my best friend. The guy's great. Every time I see him, I feel really excited. I don't mind talking about Brian. Right? But we're going to talk about God. Hope I don't offend anybody. Too bad! Have a drink. You'll be liking my life jacket soon enough. Right? Hey, you got an extra one of those? I happen to have one. Come on, anybody? Anyway, moving on, I digressed. Okay. So, to some extent, we've become God conscious. So we've moved from here to here to this. We've begun to develop this vital sixth sense. How many senses do we have as humans? 5. Now we have this other one. So our 5 senses are pretty miraculous when you think how far we've come as a species. Right? We're at the top of the food chain. Right? We've survived all those millions of years. Like, it's pretty wild. Now we've tapped, the 6th sense has always kind of been there since the beginning of time. And for people who've tapped into it, seem to evolve a lot better than those who haven't. It's just one of those things, right? I've never seen a happy atheist yet. Okay, so, did I say that out loud? I'm sorry. I was judgmental. It's the truth. Okay, so this vital six, but we must go further. That means more action. You notice step 10 didn't say action? Every action step has action in front of it. So there's the preparation step and the action step. There's 6 action steps and 6 preparation steps. Prepare. When we go on a trip, how many people prepare? Then you go on. So step 10 is an overview. We stopped at those rest stops. We're looking at it. Okay, yeah, continue. Continue what? Down this highway. Continue with everything you have. We need to develop it over here. You're going to have to really use your driving skills, right? And then you're going to get over here. We really need to further cultivate the stuff. So anyways, so here we go. We shouldn't be shy in this matter. Better men than we are using it. It works if we have the proper attitude and work at it. It would be easy to be vague about this matter, yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions on their experience. This is what they found collectively that seemed to work the best. Ready? When we retire at night. Whoa, wait a minute, what night? Well, it's very specific. When we retire at night, what night are they talking about?
Every night. At night.
Well, right now.
Tonight.
It'd be tonight. Did it say every night? So we're reading the application of this thing. We've just finished 5, 6, and 7. We read through 8, 9, and 10. Now they're giving us the next instruction. When we retire tonight, when we retire at night, tonight, right? We haven't been doing it yet, have we?
Oh, yeah, shoot, sorry.
It's okay. I just wanted you to stop looking at me with that look. Gunning me off over there. First 5 years, sister, hang in there. Okay, so when we retire, we review our week. Oh, our day. Our day. It's a 24-hour clock. Our day. Today. Why are we reviewing it? We just did a 4. Can we wait a month? No, you're involved. You'll find that funny later. Okay, so you're involved. Okay, so we review. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? So these are the things that have been blocking us. The resentments, we're still carrying some of them, yes? Right? Because today I could be angry, I could be a little pissed off, but not resentful. Was I resentful? The carrying forward. Was I afraid? Afraid would be fear, would anger, wouldn't it be? So why am I not doing a questionnaire here? People invented these questionnaires for step 11. You ever notice that? Check marks? Why am I not doing that? Why didn't it ask me to do that? Because I'm using my intuitiveness. I'm in communication with something greater than myself. Okay, God, well, how's my day? What's going on here? Right? Well, you know what? It's like, remember when we did our resentments, we had to be shown what it looked like? Then it switched to where we're selfish and we know what selfish and considered dishonest looks like. Then we were able to attach things to that. Does that kind of make sense? So today, when I review my day, my conscience will tell me, you're a bit of an asshole there. Like when I was coming home from work today, I just kind of meditated. What's going on? It says maybe you should keep some of your opinions to yourself. Just be more of a worker. Because I take over. Like that's what I do. Like I'm more of a lead. I'm more of a right? But sometimes I just need to step back and allow the lead to be the lead and the foreman to be the foreman. And just to step back and be a worker. Ask John. He's worked with me. He's getting better too. We have a secret. We have a secret shake. Anyways, so I look at that and go, you know what? Have we kept something to ourselves that should be discussed with another person at once? Not everything we thought of, something that should be discussed at once. What? Spiritual pride. Why wouldn't I want to discuss something with somebody else? Pride. Spiritual pride. Well, I'm sober this long. I shouldn't have this problem. Well, should you have discussed it with somebody else? Yeah, meaning that was part of the 5th step, humility. I don't want to tell my sponsor this, that I'm still struggling with this, or I still, like when 22 years sober, I got into an altercation. It was a long day, whatever, this driver. And 22 years, I rolled down the window, and they rolled down the window, and I just spit on them. Oh. That wasn't old behavior. It was new. It was right there. I was Tony showing up. And so I went home. I told my wife, honestly, my wife goes, oh, Tony showed up. That's me on a non-spiritual basis. I don't care. Judge me all you want. That's me left to me. I know what my 4th step looks like. My 4th step is me absent of God. Come on, look at you, some of you people. Oh, my God. Come on. Anybody want to put on some of the table on some of the stuff they've done on a non-spiritual basis? No. People went from, to. That's okay. That doesn't seem that bad. Anyways. Have we kept some? What should we discuss with another parent? Were we kind, loving toward all? Oh my God! No wonder I don't like step 11. Can we go back to step 10? We're still about me. Everybody talks about step 10, right? Come on. And it's only half a paragraph where it's about you. The rest is about your relationship with God. Oh no, we're not that part yet. We're still about us. First stage recovery is about who? What's our first obsession? Self. We can't see it as well as everybody around us. Enough about me. What do you think of me? Right? So, and how everything connects to us. So, which is interesting. Ready? What could we have done better? Oh my goodness. In regards to that situation today. Not last week. Not last week. Today. So that situation I talked about 13 years ago as an example, and people still go, oh my God, you did it. I've done a lot of stuff because in sobriety, what I've done sober is what gets people here drinking. It's progress. Based on my story, that's really mellow. Like nobody got arrested. Nobody ended up in hospital. I didn't push that. I've pushed people down the street in my car. Sober. Kicked out of roundups. barred from like it took a while for God to really make this fine piece of. Anyways, I still need God every day. I remind myself of the need of God. Why? Because Tony's there still somewhere. And when I become spiritually depleted, guess who starts stepping in? We got it from here, buddy. Okay. Look at those people. Come on, how many people have it? Now I'm concentrating on everybody around me in regards to me. And look at why they're looking at me. We were talking about that earlier. I'm walking through a mall thinking everybody's looking at me because I have a funny shirt on. Is that self-centered? Anybody ever look at you the wrong way, you're going to cause a fight? Why are they looking at me like that? Then you find out they're blind. They're looking at everybody that way. What's that guy's problem? Tony's blind. Oh, sorry. You got a problem, pal? No, anyways, so we all have these moments. Anybody have a moment in the day where you don't handle it the way you'd like? So here they're saying we're not going to carry it forward. So step 10 is the never-ending story. It's a repeat. It doesn't show you how to fix that problem from reoccurring. Does it? That's why step 11 is the only 24-hour clock. So ready? Here we go. So I'm reviewing my day. So here we're kind of loving it. Should we have done? What could we have done better? Were we thinking about ourselves most of the time? Oh, damn. Or were we thinking of what we could do for others? Oh, damn again. I'm not liking step 11. Can we go back to 10, please? Of what we could pack in the stream of life. But we must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection, for that would diminish our usefulness to others. What's our purpose now? To fit ourselves to be a maximum service to God and the people around us. A servant's heart. The highest position. Anybody know what the highest position in Alcoholics Anonymous is? The highest level that you can reach in AA?
Trusted servant.
A servant. Damn. After making our review, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. Damn, if I was doing that every day, what would my life start looking like? It'd start looking really good. There'd be a huge transformation from the knuckle-dragging meeting Neanderthal to the life I'm living today. There'd be a transformation. And I wouldn't be the basis of that. My relationship with something greater than would be. So this is just one section. So I review my day. So here's the thing. So step 10 is, I'm sorry. And let me go talk to you about what I did wrong. Isn't it? Sorry. What corrective measures should we take? I'll try not to do that again. Okay? And how many people have done it again? How many people have apologized for the same thing more than twice? Oh, right, room? Some people don't apologize. I still not done nothing wrong. I was standing there minding my own business. If they didn't do that, right? Anybody still got that finger? Anyways. So here we go. Here's an example. So, and it's pretty, I was 16 years sober when I seen this. Because they weren't teaching this before. Because everybody's about step 10. Everybody's about self. It was all about, step 11 was something, it was just prayer in the morning, pray at night. Step 11 wasn't a walking around step. That's the design. Step 11 is the only 24-hour step that we have. It's the only step that we're meant to cultivate, incorporate, and develop. That's the only step. There is no 10, 11, and 12. That's treatment style. It sounds nice, but people who say I do 10, 11, and 12 every day, they're lying to you. Because if you're doing 11, guess what step you don't have to be doing? 10. There ain't no old behaviors. It's all current, right? Because that's you on a non-spiritual basis. So here we go. So how I seen this is because I kept on having this reoccurring thing. Well, I love my wife. My wife's my best friend. There's one thing that there's that self-centeredness again. So what happens is when I see pain in my wife's eyes as a result of something I've done, it cuts me to the core. This is the only human being other than my kids I've ever felt that with. Right? When I met my wife, she opened something in me that I had the ability to feel empathy. I was 16 years old. I'd never felt. I walk over the job I had before, dead bodies, whatever, just didn't affect me the same way other people affected. I would mimic how they reacted to a situation. It just didn't, I don't know how to say it. I just didn't have that. But with my kids, I was Papa Bear. Like, like in here, like it was. So I never had that for another human being. Nobody. I'm not talking my parent, nobody. So when I got that for my wife through a situation that I created and I seen her, she started, it cracked something open in me. So ever since then, anything that I see that I do that causes her, it concerns me because I don't want to cause my wife pain through my inability to control my emotional nature, which is one of the problems. So these financial thing would come up and I'd start losing it all the time when we were talking about this financial stuff. Like I just was immature in that area. It wasn't alcoholism, untreated. I was immature, right? Because I was hoarding my money, and she wanted me to be more responsible with it and want to know about, and I would take it as a threat. And what happens, I'd get angry halfway through the conversation, right? I'm a big guy, and it'd make her nervous from my energy, and I'd start swearing and stuff. Well, I wasn't swearing at her, I was swearing at the, well, she didn't know that. Right? She started feeling anxiety and stuff. And so when she talked to me, I said, oh my God, I don't want my wife to feel it. So I went back to the book. I said, I must be missing something if I'm having this reoccurring thing happening. Because if God is everything and I'm missing something, if this change hasn't happened in me, this is because the application of certain principles, I must be missing it. Right? So I went back and I looked at, wow, look at what it says here. What should we have done instead? What corrective measures? So I went, okay, this happens, so let's take this, move it over to the principles of here's the fear. And when this comes up, it creates an energy shift. I feel the energy. When I step back and I become an observer of that moment, I'm observing me with my wife as an observer. She's talking about certain things. I see a shift happening in Tony. He's becoming instinct-based. He's created an argument within himself. He's not listening to her anymore. The energy's building up in him, and that energy's got to go somewhere, right? I can't contain it. So the energy goes toward her. She's taking it personal. So then, what corrective measures should we take? I said to her, look, I don't want to be this person. And it was continuing for a little while. I said, corrective is, I want to sit and make an appointment with you when it comes to these financial things. And when I feel an energy shift, do you mind if we pray? Do you mind if we pray? And can you help me work through this thing? I want to have a different response with you. So we'll make it like a business meeting. We'll talk about this. If we need to take a break or you need to take a break, we'll respect that. We'll take a break. We'll revisit it or we'll pray. When I feel a shift, can I acknowledge the shift that's happening, right? That I'm not hearing well? And she says, yeah. And then we work through it. And now it's like you could ask her next time you see her. She asked me about how much you need. You want to check? Here's her grand, no problem. What do you need? I don't get upset with her. She's now become relaxed and calm. We do that with every single problem. So that's one thing when we retired. And the corrective was those things. I invited her into it, and I invited God into it, right? So that one thing is not a repeating story in our life anymore. So that's just the exercise at night. And why we don't do the questionnaire is your consciousness needs to tell. You need to be tapped into your consciousness, not your brain. Because if you're doing somebody else's exercise, what are you exercising it out of? You're thinking.
Yeah.
Here's where you got to size it and allow the consciousness. Your consciousness will tell you where you weren't kind, loving, and tolerant. Anybody think of situations today or yesterday? So if I take corrective measures, so read through this now with that magnifying glass on what about when I wake up, when I go through the day. Let's see how it ties all these principles together. And if I was actually doing these things, what does step 11 ask me to do? There's something is what I'm trying to incorporate. There's an exercise that I'm trying to put together that they want me to incorporate in my life. It needs to become a working part of something. See what it says. And that's what all these principles are. So it stops being about the steps. It starts being about principles. practice these principles. We removed the compartmentalization of the steps because the steps are to get us connected to source. The principles are to develop that. The second half of how it works talks about practice these steps in all our affairs, practice these principles. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Live long and prosperous. May the force be with you. And we'll carry on. We have the 7th tradition. We're self-supporting through our own contributions. A lot of you look like you went into the thinking zone. So we'll bring you back into the prayer zone. And what do we need for a good life? God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, the victory over them. May I bear witness to those that would help with thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. This talk will be online next week, and we're going to add them all together, right? So it's going to be a really good exercise. Okay, let's get rocking and rolling. Hi, I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name's Tony. Welcome to this Thursday night Big Book Study Zoom Big Book Study Workshop, the Keystone Group. Let's open this meeting with a bit of prayer. What do you think? Hey, what do we need for a good meeting? God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, the victory over them. May I bear witness to those I would help, thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Okay, for those who have been following along, last week we kind of looked at and finished off with page 86, when we retire at night. A lot of confusing stuff we covered in great detail last week about a lot of people say, like we do steps 10, 11, and 12. It doesn't say to do that anywhere. It's something we picked up somewhere. Like step 10 is a daily inventory thing. It doesn't say that anywhere. It says continue to watch for stuff. So the daily practices, there's only one step that gives you the outlay of the day. Right? And we learned all the principles necessary to incorporate this stuff. So when they talked about when we retire at night, what night? The night after you finish your 7th step. We read through 8 and 9. We're looking at it. Upon awakening. Just before that, it said, after making our review, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. That's pretty cool, right? That means you're not repeating the same thing over and over and over again. What got me into this situation? And how can I avoid it the next time, right? And a lot of that has to do with the foundation of step 4, right? Because in step 4, you started to learn how to meditate. You had to learn how to kind of receive information. And then you listen to your consciousness. You ever notice that in 4, when you try to, you move from the noise of your mind to what's happening inside of you. And what's happening inside of you will let you know what you need to be, what you're hiding, what you need to deal with. Anybody? Nobody needed any help with your 4th step. It was all there, right? Whether you wanted to write it down or not was entirely up to you, yes? Yeah. And anybody before they did their 5th step already had a list of things that they didn't want to talk about? You notice that was your consciousness again, right? And after you did your 5th step, was there anything I left out? Anybody? Your conscience say, hey, you left this out. Shh, quiet. So we see we're in dialogue with this part of us that wants the best for us, but we still want to know better than it, yes? And so now we have a new dialogue happening with I call it the narrator. Anybody have the narrator in their mind that talks a certain way and you want to look at life a different way? So you got to reprogram the narrator. And how we do that is we get a new script, yes? And so this narrator is saying one thing, we go, no. We're moving in this direction. And then we learned how to incorporate prayer. We learned how to meditate. We learned how to take direction. Right, so we got a GPS going on, God's prayer system happening. Yeah, try a bit. What's your name again? She had one of those days, I'm not even looking over there.
I'm just here for the bubbly.
You're here for the bubbly. Well, this is Joanne. This is one of my long-term projects. She'll be getting 10 years. First 10 years, you're new for the first 10 years soon here. And we're changing it to 15 for you. Would you like to introduce yourself? Or you want to pray some more?
I think you did a great job.
Okay.
Thanks.
And she's a real alcoholic. Okay, so So we have this idea, right? So like certain jackpots we get in, and then on awakening, why don't we start there?
On awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. Before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. Under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance. For after all, God gave us brains to use. Our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives.
So this is cool because the previous page, it talked about the proper use of will. So in step 3, we're saying, hey, I need some help, right? I don't know how to apply these spiritual principles or access them yet. I need a solution to this problem that's kicking my ass. So they're saying, well, here, let's show you how to apply these spiritual principles to existing problems, right? And so when you see we get some relief by applying these principles, the resentments, the fears, the harms in conduct, it doesn't ask you, does it make sense? You see, there's something to work here. Anybody ever try the prayer thing? There's something to this thing, even though I can't really figure out, there's some relief to it. So now you begin to have an experience. That's what this is all about. It's not my experience anymore. It's for you to have your experience. Now, what's really cool about here is in the morning, when we're asking for direction, what other thing would we be looking at this stage of the game? What would we be kind of considering? Step 8. What would we be considering? Step 8, yeah, because we haven't done anything yet. What a great crowd.
I know.
So
You think maybe they've been to one or more big book studies.
So you have this list still, right? So what would you be seeking counsel with? You'd be asking this power for direction. Well, what amends do you want me to make? And do you think your consciousness would tell you? How many people, when they finished their 6, 7, 8, and 9, started looking at 10, 11, your consciousness, I wonder what amends I should make in this. No, I don't want to make that one. I don't want to make that one. Your consciousness is telling you which one to make. You go, no. I want to do these other ones. Well, did that come up in your prayer and meditation? No, but these seem a lot better because, it is my ex and I'd like to get back together with them. Or I'm looking for a job. See how self takes over like that? And how many people looked at their 8s and looked at the ones that would benefit them? Come on, we're all in this together. Come on. You too? Yeah, we started that movement a long time ago. You too? So, yeah, me too. So here you'd be seeking, what's my day? What am I going to do today? Oh, this amend came up or that amend came up. Some of these are going to take preparation. Maybe it's financial, maybe it's criminal, maybe it has to do with family, friends, and all that stuff. So we're not going to Shanghai them, right? We're going to prepare. Right? What's our purpose? To be a maximum service to who? To God and people, to fit ourselves. So now what we're really seeking to do is give other people the opportunity of healing. But we need to prepare ourselves to do it because before we did this process, when you thought of the amends, how many people were a little terrified of some of them? Because it was just self-governing self. But now you have something else working in your life because you access this inner resource of strength, right? So it's like, okay, God, I need the strength to do this. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I need help doing it. Who would be another person to seek counsel with before acting on some of these things? Sponsor, right? And then your sponsor would say, hey, I don't have experience with that. I have an opinion. Well, I don't want your opinion. You have an experience with this. No, then let me find somebody who has experience with this. Does that kind of make sense? So that's what I'm seeking my day here. So I'm just starting, I'm trying to get my mind right. I'm trying to get consciousness right. How do you know when you're reconnected? How do you know? The moment you have a thought about it, you're connected back in the moment. You're back here. Where's here? Here, present. It may sound kind of weird, but it's that easy. Hey, God, yes. Am I connected? Yes. What do you want me to do? The dishes. No, what do you want me to do? Anybody ever pray here and you didn't get the answer you want, so pray? Well, you didn't hear me. Let me do this again. Anybody ever get an answer? No, I don't like that answer. How many people's gone to more than 2 people with the same problem? Because you didn't like the answer. That's why I love our common welfare circle. If you get into a good big book based group or the people who've spiritually based, most of them will give you the same answer. How do we apply these principles to have change? Right? It's not how do I apply self to self to have change. How many people has done that? How many people here has ever had to make amends for the amends? Right? So it's pretty wild stuff. So we've gone through the morning. We're kind of getting connected. After all, God gave us brains to use. Some of you should click into that idea soon. Okay, so, and I wasn't looking at you for that. I mean, okay, go ahead.
I'm very sensitive.
I know you're sensitive.
In thinking about our day, we may face indecision. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Here, we ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought, or a decision.
When? As we go through the day, we may face what? What do? Pause. Hey, there's something happening here. Where did we learn that? We learned that in the 4, right? I feel something happening here. Self is about to take over. So if I'm able to pause, do you think I'm creating wreckage? Will I have to make amends for things? So we see here, if I'm doing 11, then I really don't need to be doing 10. Because if I'm doing 11, I'm doing all of it, right? But if I'm just doing 10, guess what I'll be doing more of? More 10s. Because it doesn't teach you how to get out of the jackpot, how to avoid the jackpot, and to put on the brakes before the accident. Step 10 is always after the accident. And this much is the first paragraph is about continuing to look at things as they pop up, as you clean up the past. So the old way of looking at things compared to the new way of looking at things, do you think there may be a conflict? Well, how many people have gone to make amends and you had the old way of looking at it, and then you have a new way of looking at it, and how many people started leaning back toward the old way of looking at it? I never liked you anyways. Whoops. Right? So we're incorporating prayer that we stay on this side of right, because we're prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. So if I'm able to incorporate prayer, pause, as these things start, the narrator starts to talk to me. Anybody ever talk to somebody and your narrator kicks in? And you're changing and they don't see the change, but you're changing? And you're having a conversation with yourself now? There's no God, nobody involved, and you're arguing with them? You're there to make amends? Huh?
Repeating what it's saying.
Yeah, repeating. Yeah. Anybody? You have any experience with that?
I find all of what you're saying very interesting, but I find that most of us miss the order in which these things occur, right? The ability to pause, the ability to be able to be here in this moment and present enough to be able to say, God, I need inspiration or an intuitive thought or assistance with this decision in this moment. How is that not possible? When is that not possible? When we haven't done the previous paragraph, right? Upon awakening, asking for our thinking to be directed, right? Not by ourselves, not by our own designs, not by our own plans, not by the selfish and self-centered reasons we would go through our day, right? But that paragraph comes before the ability to pause, the ability to ask, because our ability to stay present in this moment is governed by how we started this day, right? Was the first thing we did to make contact, with this power greater than ourselves deep down within? Did we willingly ask to have our thinking directed throughout the day? How many of you have found yourself halfway through your day having your thinking directed by something so far removed from anything spiritual, right? And so you feel like you're in crisis, so you phone, let's say, a sponsor, right? Verbal diarrhea on the phone, right? And your phone's like, oh, just pray about it. And you're like, right? Because the ability to pause and pray in that moment is damn near impossible. Why? Because our thinking isn't being directed by anything other than ourselves, right? We're robbed in that moment of the ability to be present. Right? We're robbed of that moment to be divorced from self-pity, dishonesty, and self-seeking motives. We are completely governed by it, right? And what Tony's saying is, what is the ability to reconnect, right? Do you have to wait a whole day until the next day so you can go through this all? No, right? This exercise can be done at any point, preferably at the beginning of the day, right?
And if you want to, we permit these things. right? We were laughing about it. Like, I'm 35 years sober. Joanne's 10 years sober. We were talking about how self took over.
9 years and 11 months.
4 hours and 15 minutes, but who's counting?
I'm sorry.
But the whole idea is, like, I had an episode going along my own business. Something happened to hit every instinct, right? Self took over 100%. Right? I won't get into the whole thing, but I mean, I was driven by something like full instinct, full blown. Here's Tony, here's Johnny, right? And I'm going, and the little voice says, "Pray." No. Phone you phone somebody. No. Come on, am I the only one that has that? You have a little voice saying, hey, no. I'm not done yet. Right? And this thing's trying to hold you back, and you're like, let go. I got it from here. How many people have that?
Maybe it's not even just in a state of agitation the way that Tony's describing it. It can be other states of agitation, right? A feeling of powerlessness, acute anxiety, right? A feeling of hopelessness, right? That whatever is going on in this moment for you, whether it be fancied or real, is not surmountable, right? And something deep down within you is saying, call this person, do this thing, go and apologize to that person. And your mind, right, is so far in control that it's got a rebuttal for everything. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. Everything is hopeless and useless, and there's no point in even trying, right? How many people have lived like that most of their days? What this is saying is we can stop in that moment and consider, right, the next 12 hours, the next hour, the next 15 minutes, right? And we can ask for God to direct our thinking in that moment. But the idea is to be in constant state of step 11, right? Does that make sense? Not morning and night, all throughout the day.
And that's the ABCs, being convinced, right? Learning humility, getting of that place back to humility, either being administered or acquired. But it's coming. That's why it says our adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. Either you find the humility to connect and ask for some grace or some direction, or life will beat you into a state of reasonableness. Anybody been beaten into a state of reasonableness sober? Because when you start seeing you're the one doing it to you, it's kind of humbling. And nobody can beat us better than ourselves, eh? If anybody did half the shit to me that I do to myself, I'd be pissed off. Oh, that explains that look. Sorry, go ahead.
Just to slow it down and break it down a little bit, in thinking about our day, right? Full stop. How many of you think about your day constantly, right? It's a narrative that's constantly going. How many of you notice that in thinking about your day, you're just building a sense of tension, anxiety, concern, worry, right? How many get all these things done? Oh my God, I've committed to 2 things at the same time. I don't want to disappoint, whatever it might be, right? Here, we ask God for inspiration, right? An intuitive thought or decision. This is not what most of us do, though. Most of us double down on the problem solving and increase the anxiety and tension, right? And the next person we come in verbal contact with gets both loads, right? Like just snapping, right? Make sense?
Yeah, and that's it. So the pause, wherever it is, the interruption on my thinking, instead of allowing the narrator to take over of every possible problem I could have that day, is God, help me be of service. Help me go to work and be a worker amongst work. Help me just be there. Help me be in the moment. It's a way different day. Anybody ever notice that?
But what are our instructions as soon as we do what Tony's just said and what the book is saying? Say that louder.
We relax, take it easy.
How many people are good at that in here? Right? It's like the relationship I actually have with my GPS, right? Like sometimes I'll map out a GPS to get to where I'm going. I know how to get there, but I want the fastest route, right? And the GPS is saying, turn right here. And I'm like, are you sure? I don't think that that's the most efficient way to get there. I think turning left is the way. And this is very similar to the relationship I constantly have with the power greater than myself. And the idea here is that we're not here to convince you that we're 2 people who have like a perfect spiritual day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right?
23 now, but not 24.
But this idea that when we pause and ask God for inspiration and intuitive thought or decision, and our next instructions are to relax and take it easy, what can that look like, right? If we really, really want to enter into a relationship with something greater than ourselves, and I don't mean a belief system that we kind of talk about at meetings for an hour and then we go back into our day acting like a lunatic, right? I mean a real relatable relationship that's with you 24 hours a day, right? And if we truly believe that this power is infinite, right, and we are limited, then the idea here is God's going to provide me with answers. My job is to relax and take it easy here, right?
It's like the contract on page 63. He's the employer, where's, right? He's the employer, where's employees and agents, right? He'll provide what we need if we keep close to him. What's the closeness is just in connection. So I may not understand why it says go left here, but if I go left here, I'll find out. But if I don't go left there, I'll never find out. And this is where your experience, especially when it comes to the amends part, if I'm going to trust and rely on God, and something says do this, don't do this, I got to trust that. And if not, it'll get into how I tune that after. Go ahead.
We don't struggle, which means that the struggle has no place here, right? Most of us feel like we're not really engaged in our problem solving unless we're really struggling, right? But it says here we don't struggle, right? They're not offering you a brochure example of what it could be. They're offering instructions here. Don't struggle. It's not necessary here. We are often surprised how the right answers come after we have tried this for a while. What used to be the hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind.
What do they want to become a working part of the mind?
Conscious contact?
The recipe that keeps us connected, that has us seeking, right? Most of us could go all day in self-talk and not even connect it or seek guidance until a problem, right? Like if your relationship with God looked the same as your relationship with people around you, how would that relationship be? But we find God's usually in the morning or at night. How would that relationship look? How would you like to have that kind of relationship when somebody only talked to you when they wanted something?
It's horrible.
Well, but that's the way a lot of us, oh God, here's my list. We think we pray for things. Step 11 says we pray about things. And if it provides all that I need, well, do I know what is best for me? I think I do, but if all the prayers that I ever prayed for came true, I'd be pretty miserable today.
If I knew what was best for me, I wouldn't be living in a recovery center.
Being convinced. Okay, go ahead.
Being still inexperienced in having just made conscious contact with God, it is not probable that we are going to be inspired at all times. We might pay for this presumption in all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. Nevertheless, we find that our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more on the plane of inspiration. We come to rely upon it. What does that mean? It is not probable that we are going to be inspired at all times. We might pay for this presumption on all sorts of absurd actions and ideas.
Shift back to self-directed? Or shift?
When we start to feel, right, sort of in, like maybe our thinking is in line with something more powerful, what something more powerful would have us be, right? We start thinking everything is a sign of God, right? This relationship must be what God wants me to have. This job, it must be what God wants me to have, right? We're still in a place of constantly looking for those instincts, right? And seeing where we can apply these spiritual principles. But we'll pay for this presumption in all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. Nevertheless, we should still keep going, right? Because we find more and more that our thinking becomes more as time passes on this plane. And we get better at it, right? We get more in tune with it. Does that make sense? So the idea behind long-term sobriety, you might have met somebody who's got lots of long-term sobriety, but they don't necessarily have a vibe that you don't really want much to do with, right? And you might meet somebody who has half that amount of sobriety. and they emit something that's very attractive, right? This is what we're talking about, is the ability to practice these principles in all of your affairs, enriching this relationship with something greater than yourself. It increases your frequency, right? It's very attractive to others. But so it's not necessarily a longevity of sobriety so much as it is the richness of this relationship. Does that make sense? We usually conclude the period of meditation with a prayer that we be shown all through the day what our next step is to be, that we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. This is probably one of my favorite lines in the book, right? This means that I've just been given a recipe, right? On awakening, if I begin my day in this manner, right? Being willing to have my thinking directed, being willing to pause throughout the day, being willing when I face indecision to ask for direction, intuition, or the right decision, and being willing to actually follow the instructions when they come and not argue with them, left, right? I will be given whatever it is that I need to take care of such problems. That does not say that I will be provided with everything that I want. What I want and what I need are two totally different things.
That we be shown all through the day. What step were we to practice all through the day?
Step 11.
Step 11. It's the walking around step. It's what we need to become a working part of the mind.
It's the living step, right? Constantly. It's your constant companion. It continues for a lifetime.
So this is the instructions that we needed for pages 84 to 85. Right, the overview. This gives us the instructions on how to do those things that they talked about in their experience.
Align your will.
The lining of our will, all that stuff, right?
We ask especially for freedom from self-will, right? This is repeated throughout the book. We want freedom from the bondage of self, right? Freedom from the selfishness, freedom from the self-centeredness, freedom from the focus on self, right? To fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and to those about us, right? We ask especially for freedom from self-will and are careful to make no request for ourselves only. We may ask for ourselves, however, if others will be helped. We are careful never to pray for our own selfish ends. Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that. It doesn't work. You can easily see why. What did a couple of drinks provide us? A sense of ease and comfort, right? We love a sense of ease and comfort, right? We will pray for it all day. Never mind everybody else. I need to feel better.
And see how our experience can benefit others.
Some of the things that in this relationship you are provided with, whatever it is you need to take care of such problems, don't always feel very good, right? Taking care of such problems doesn't always feel like a sense of ease and comfort. Some of it's hard. Some of it's difficult. Some of it makes your brain scream, no, right? No, I don't want to turn right. I want to turn left. No, I don't want to turn left. I want to turn right. But the idea here is that we follow these directions because we'll never know what's on the other side of the difficult thing. But we will be provided what we need in order to get through it. Does that make sense? If circumstances warrant, we ask our wives or friends to join us in morning meditation. If we belong to a religious denomination which requires a definite morning devotion, we attend to that also. If not members of religious bodies, we sometimes select and memorize a few set of prayers which emphasize the principles we have been discussing. There are many helpful books also.
Why would they suggest to do that we memorize?
When you're out, it's hard to pull up a book or grab your phone or just search it. If you know it, you can just say it.
Well, there's more to it than that. Why would they ask us to memorize?
So it becomes a working part of the mind?
Well, what's usually in your mind?
Self.
You, self. And a lot of us can't. Some of you may be old enough to remember. Remember the old record players? You used to put the needle on it, and it'd get stuck and go round and round and round. Then you'd have to put a couple pennies on it, and then it got over that part of the record that it used to stay stuck on. You remember that? Don't start on me. So, and that's kind of like our CD player that you had to hit or something, whatever, right? The old cassettes that he had to wind with a pen. But the whole idea is to move past the place of getting stuck. And most of us stay within our own thinking. How many people have been thinking about a problem or situation and living in it because you can't get out of it? And then, you try not to think about it, and there you are thinking about it again. You're watching TV, there you are thinking about it again. You're watching TV, there you are thinking about it again. So you can't escape self, right? So instead of buying into the narrator, what you're doing is making a conscious decision to move toward the idea of meditating as a form of concentration. Anybody ever read and think at the same time?
Anybody read a couple of pages and then have to go back and be like, I don't know what I just read?
So what you do is you go back. Meditation is memorizing is I'm going to concentrate on this, right? And if my mind interrupts me, I start over again. And what happens is I start having domain over my thinking instead of my thinking having domain over me. And so in early sobriety, when we're talking about this stuff, and we're going to talk about some of the amends here too, it's going to be a 3-part thing to this, is that when I'm in the middle of amend or going through something and my brain wants to take over, I can't sleep at night. Like my sponsor taught me, he says, I've never met anybody who's ever been able to do the Lord's Prayer 3 times in a row without falling asleep. I took him up on that challenge. You know what? 35 years later, I've never been able to do it 3 times in a row without falling asleep. I've never completed 3 times. I've fallen asleep every time. And then but the first time I went to him, because the way we think, I see everybody's faces really getting contorted. Wow, I don't know about that. So what it means is to meditate, to concentrate is not to be interrupted, yes? So if you were to read a paragraph and you got interrupted, you'd have to start over again. And now you're disciplining your mind to concentrate on if you're in a meeting and you can't stay present, what you do is repeat what's being said by people. You don't leave the meeting. You stay present. You're teaching your mind. You're starting to have domain over your mind. I don't know if it kind of makes sense. Give me strength to do it. So the Lord's Prayer, I chose the Lord's Prayer. That's what my sponsor taught me is as I started to think, as I was reading, as I was concentrating, I'd have to start over again. Right? Because I went to him, I said, I did it 3 times. He says, no. He says, you're lying again. He used to go, no, you're lying. I'm not lying. He says, did you start thinking? Yeah. He says, then you didn't do it 3 times in a row. So every time I started thinking, I'd have to go back, start again, and then I'd just concentrate on it. And it's a form of meditation. It's like walking along the beach. It's like meditating where you're dictating to your mind how you want things to be, instead of your mind dictating to you. Does that kind of make sense? That's why you do that. If you're on your way somewhere, like Joanne was talking about when she went to make that amends to somebody she didn't really want a sponsee phone. So you got to concentrate on the sponsee now instead of saying, sorry, I'm right in the middle of worrying about something. I can't talk to you right now. Right? God will send you people, places, and things to interrupt or to give you the strength you need. Whether you pay attention to it or not is another story. But if it provides all that you need, what you need to be able to start recognizing is God's fingerprints all over your life. And when you can start seeing the fingerprints, then you can see that we've entered the world of the spirit.
Has anybody heard of the term meditation being referred to as being absent of thought? Like no thought. It's actually impossible, right? You can't sit and have no thought, right? What you can do is learn to sit and focus on a single thought, right? And that's what we're talking about. In the memorizing a few set prayers kind of ties into the next set of instructions here. As we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful and ask for the next right thought or action. We learned in the 4-step, right, about applying that prayer on page 67, right? When angry, when we feel attacked by another person, right? Although we didn't like their symptoms or the way they made us feel, right? We ask God to help us take a kind and loving and tolerant point of view, right? On the next page, the fear prayer, right? To sort of interrupt this narrative that's going on inside the mind. As we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful and ask for the next right thought or action. You see how we're getting a bit repetitive with the instructions? It's almost like there's really just kind of a singular set of instructions here, and they're just reiterating them over and over and over again as a level of importance.
Where did we learn that? We learned that in 4. What's that, the basis of agitation and doubtful? What's the basis of that? Fear. So if you're catching it on this side, so what follows fear is usually resentment, harms, narration, control, manipulation, right? Coercion. All that stuff follows to create security. Yes? Most of us are trying to create security with people, places, and things. That's where most of our problems come from. It's trying to create security within ourselves instead of something greater than ourselves. So as we go through the day, if you were to pause, when you think about some of the shit you got into this week or last week, think anybody? Nobody here, just me and you? Mm-hmm. Anybody? Anybody have a moment with it, even by yourself? If you were to pause, would it have changed that moment?
Yeah.
If you were to pause and pray, or your interaction with other people, if you were to listen to what was happening inside of you, well, I'm moving into an instinct-based response, or my brain's starting to take over here, right? A form of meditation isn't concentrating on your thinking more.
It's not doubling down on the problem solving, right? That's not in keeping with what we've just been given, right? On awakening, we think about the plans for the 24 hours ahead, right? We ask God to direct our thinking. If we are in a state of agitation, is our thinking being directed in that moment? No, that's our opportunity to go back to that direction, right? We have to be able to pause and ask, right? In a state of willingness to be redirected away from what's happening. Because if it's all coming from fear, from instinct-based, where does all of that come from? What comes first before fear, before instincts, before thought, right? Think about it. You go through your whole day and some of your sleeping hours with a friend inside your mind that never shuts up, right? It never stops talking. Sometimes it's having 4 or 5 conversations at once, right? And where are you? You're not here. You're up here having a conversation with this friend that never shuts up, right? And what we're saying here is this is a set of instructions that allows you to focus on a singular thing, right? A singular relationship, a singular conversation that has the power to redirect all of your energy towards something better than what you're about to do if you're just continue engaging in the conversation with a friend that never shuts up.
So if your mind is like this room and everybody started talking, would it be hard to concentrate on what everybody was saying? But if you focused on one person, would you be able to kind of catch what they were saying? And that's kind of like this. Your brain will always have stuff. It's called clinging and grasping. Your brain will always have stuff going through it. But what we do, without realizing, subconsciously, our consciousness will go, hey, look at this. And you go, oh, look at that. Oh, my God, let's look at it again. Oh, my God, we better look at it again. Then what will happen? Oh, my God, then this too?
Yeah, let's unpack it and nurture it and love it and care about it and focus totally on it, right?
Front row tickets to the Stephen King movie I'm creating. So, but what the idea is, no, I see that. No, I don't need to deal with the God. I don't need to deal with that today. It's not happening today. Give me the strength to let this go. So this is where you see, is it step 6 stuff? My past trying to reintroduce itself to me, dictating what's happening today based on past stuff? We all got it. Or is it today's stuff that I'm having a hard time? Is it am I falling short of the mark, the idea how I'd like to live? Or is it step 6 still creating a narrative, having me being the same way, reacting to life the same way? So this is where, okay, this is still step 6 stuff. Okay, I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to talk to hey, this is still happening, or maybe I'll get some outside help if it continues. But what's really cool here is if I could learn not to cling and grasp, if I get away from the story, if I can concentrate on the present, this narration keeps on coming. I remember when I was doing this section here, and I was in the morning, this said, I got to take care of this certain amend. I didn't want to take care of this certain amend because it looked like I was looking at penitentiary time, right? And I didn't want to do it, right? But I had to because I was being a prisoner to it. I wanted to take care of these other amends, but those amends weren't coming up. This was present. So I said, okay, God, give me the strength to do it. I talked to my sponsor, and then I went and made arrangements. I went to Toronto. And as I went to Toronto, I ran into this guy. If I would have went a day sooner or a day later, I would have missed him. I ran into him. I crossed paths with him. He goes, here, it was one of my sister's my brother-in-law's friends that he just happened to see it after a couple years. He gave me a card of a lawyer that he knew. I phoned this lawyer. This lawyer said, "Yeah, I'll take your case." Right? This lawyer was going to go on to be a prosecutor. Like he was shifting, or a judge. He was shifting. He took on my case that I just happened to have. And then as I was doing that narration, of course, I turned myself in. When I turned myself in, they didn't want to give me bail on all the charges. They gave me bail on some of the charges, not the other charges. So guess what I was doing while I was in jail, in the Don? I was 12-stepping people. I said, "God, if this is your will for me, give me the strength to be present, to be of help." And people were asking me in that jail, "What are you doing here?" Talking to you. That's what I'm doing here, right? All right? And I'm 12-step, and so I'm praying not for the outcome, is the strength to handle if this is your will for me, then give me the strength to handle it. And so then the John Howard Society got involved, and they let me get out on my own reconnaissance. But I had to sign weekly, but there was a whole bunch of people that wanted to give testimony why they didn't want me on the street anymore, right? Anyway, long story short, I got out. John Howard Society said I could come back home, right, and sign in once a month, like phone back and sign, which was unheard of. And so I said, "God, I don't got no money. I don't got no money to get home. You said you look after me. I got no apartment. I got no insurance, no nothing." So something said, "Go to this meeting over here." It was a speaker meeting. I said, "I don't like speaker meetings." All the single women are over at that other meeting. I'm not the only one. Come on. All the single people are over there. I'm looking for a power greater than myself to help me through this rough time, right? You know what I mean? Come on, I'm not alone, right? So everything inside me was saying, "Go over here." I wanted to go over there. You see what I'm saying? Self wanted to go over there. So I said, "Okay, fine." That's how me and God talk. "Okay, I'll go over there." I went over this meeting. I was sitting there, and this guy was a contractor speaking, telling his story. Afterwards, some said, "Go ask him for a job." I said, "I don't want to ask him for a job." "Go ask him for a job." I went up and said, "Hey, this is my situation." And he happened to be he had a lot of similar story, right? He says, "Well, you got any tools?" I said, "No, I don't got no tools." You got your work boots?" I said, "I don't got no work. I don't got nothing. What you see is what I got." I told him the story. He just looked at me and kind of went weird. And he phoned me that night. He said, "I prayed about it." And he said, "Can you start tomorrow?" I said, "I can start tomorrow." And so you see, just by doing something that didn't make sense, I went again, and I got enough money to come back here, do all that stuff, take care of all those things. It was pretty wild. And then when I came back, I was able to go back there and for trial, and just because I prayed about those things, all the charges were dropped but one. All of them. My lawyer witnessed a miracle happening within that facility by trusting God, because somebody told me, "We serve a greater power than any power we'll ever stand before." If God's narrating this thing, what are you worried about? So I went in, and then after I left there, a lot of other stuff happened, but my lawyer said, "I've never seen anything like that happen before. You must be kissing angels." There was a whole bunch of different divisions I won't get into it. They were going to give testimony why I shouldn't, right? Some of you may understand that. And they're all standing there. My lawyer says, "Come in here real fast." I came in and says, "Just plead guilty." He was all excited. "Okay, guilty." 500 hours community service, which was a lot back then. Right back, it was a lot of hours of community service, right? And then I left, right? And it was pretty wild, that whole situation. Why? Because I was trusting and relying on God. Another real fast, I went back to make amends to some of the people in my family, people that I thought didn't like me. Anybody ever have that thought? I've talked myself out of more happiness because of my brain. The narrator was talking. Something said, "Go make amends to these people." So I took a bus from here across Canada while I still have warrant. This is before backing up. This is before I did the warrant thing. And then, so every bus stop I was asking for friends of Bill W. over the PA system. This is back before cell phones, back before anything. And I'm going from here to Quebec. It's a 4-day bus ride, right? And so I'm sitting on the bus and I'm praying. I'm listening to cassettes. I'm listening to the grapevine, which is awesome stuff, right? I'm listening to that stuff. I'm clinging and grasping, step 3, step 11, praying, and got my big book. So I get on this one bus and something said, sit up front. I don't like sit up. So I sat up front. And I'm talking to God, right? And the last part of the trip, I said, God, you said you'd look after me. I'm not feeling it, man. Been 3 days now. I stopped in all these bus switches.
I'm not feeling a sense of ease and comfort.
Yeah, not at all, man. I'm feeling anxiety. I'm feeling fear.
This God stuff is...
I said, you're not looking after me. And this lady beside me, she goes, you okay? I said, yeah, I got to see these people I haven't seen in a long time, and I don't think they like me very much. And blah. She goes, oh, I had to do that. She says, I've been a friend of Bill W's for the last 25 years. Sitting on the bus right beside me. Like, how does that stuff happen? Like, God's fingerprints are out, so our ability to see what's happening and participate in it, right? That's what this stuff is all about. God, give me the strength to be present, to allow you to show up in my life in ways that I can't see, but you know what I mean? Like Abby showing up with Bill. You have any experiences with any of that stuff?
Oh, yeah. Tons. As we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful and ask for the next right thought or action. What do we do when we're agitated or doubtful?
Pause.
But what do we actually do?
React.
Yeah, we double down, right? And then we wonder why this thing isn't working, right? But the story that Tony has just explained is really beautiful in the sense of, the agitation starts to rise. I don't really want to do this. I don't really want to go here. What does he do? He pauses. He asks, he asks for direction. He asks for inspiration, right? He asks for a decision, intuitive thought. He gets the intuitive thought. He doesn't really want to do the thing. He goes to the front of the bus, right? And it's not really, we don't want to make it sound like do this thing, get a reward, do this thing, get a reward, because it's not a drive-through, right? But what it is a way of life, right? And if we follow and apply these principles to our human problems, and that's what they're talking about on these pages, right? I have a human problem, I apply the spiritual principle to it. Do I know what the result is going to be? No, but this thing says that I'll get what I need.
It's not alcoholism. We're not dealing with alcoholism. We're dealing with the human dilemma.
We constantly remind ourselves that we are no longer running the show. Why? Because when we run the show, right, we double down, we react, things get worse, never better, right? All of that stuff.
Constantly, like weekly?
All throughout the day.
All through the day. Think this is 20, why would it say constantly remind yourself? Because let me in, coach. He used to say, let me in, my turn. Can I take it from here?
Coach.
Yeah, sure. You can take it from here. I'll be right here.
Humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. Now we understand the principle behind that saying, right? It's not just something that we kind of just flippantly say at the end of the Serenity Prayer at the end of the meeting. It's actually something we apply to our human problems,
and
right?
acceptance isn't the answer to all my problems. Get involved. The relationship is. My relationship with a power greater than myself gives me the elements that I need to face life.
Additionally to that, nowhere on these pages does it say that you'll phone your sponsor. Your sponsor will put on a cape, fly in, and solve all of your problems, right? Your sponsor's job, right, when you reach out for help is to redirect you back to these principles. Right? Yeah, I know what you're going through is really tough. I know what you're going through is really difficult. But all I have to offer you is my experience, strength, and hope around applying these principles. And I'm telling you right now that if you stand here in this moment and be where your feet are and do your very best to reconnect with something greater than yourself, the next 20 minutes will go much better than if you just keep flying off the handle the way that you're doing right now. Right? And that's the idea behind, did you pray about it? Right? It's not really meant to be I don't want to deal with this, go away and pray. It's apply a spiritual principle to your human problem and see what happens, right? We are then in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. We become much more efficient. We do not tire so easily. How many people here are tired? How many people here are like spiritually and mentally exhausted? That's what happens when you spend all day with somebody who won't shut up, right? It's exhausting. We become much more efficient. We do not tire so easily. We are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. Think about that for a moment. Trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. We've decided the way that it needs to be, and we're going to overexert ourselves and damage our relationships with everyone around us trying to make it so.
Punish or reward, right?
Or does the set of instructions we've just been given seem a little simpler and easier? You tell me which is the easier, softer way. Tell me, right? Is it the one that makes you spiritually and mentally exhausted at the end of the day and not wanting to interact with anyone or anything? Or is it this one that makes you fit yourself to be of maximum service to God and those around you? Having incredible experiences that you're able to share with other people in order for them to know and understand that this is possible for them too. I don't know, it seems like a really neat deal to me. It works, it really does. We alcoholics are undisciplined. It doesn't mean that we're, running around undisciplined. I mean, yes, we are. But what they're talking about is our thinking, right? That friend, that internal committee of people that just don't stop talking at all, right? It's our thinking that's undisciplined.
So your narrator's governing you instead of you governing it. It's telling you how to think, feel, and respond, and you're talking to it. Anybody? Right? That's what we're talking about. That's the undisciplined part.
So we let God discipline us in the simple way we have just outlined. This is not fire and brimstone, right? This is not a fist-shaking disciplinarian. This is a spiritual relationship that allows you to focus on this relationship, to focus on one thing, to focus on something that means nothing but goodwill towards you, right? Instead of focusing on the 25 problems that you're going to solve with all of your instincts.
We've just outlined. What did they just outline?
Fear.
Step 11, the 24-hour clock. Where are we to live within the 24-hour clock? When we retire at night, repeat upon awakening as we go through the day. If you start living like that, how long will it be before you and your life look pretty good? So if you're doing this while you're doing your amends, then you'll understand. You'll suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we couldn't do for ourselves. We'll suddenly realize that the problem's removed. We'll suddenly realize that in order to have this full meal deal, I need to be living in 11 and 12. Right? Which we're going to get into. Go ahead.
We alcoholics are undisciplined, so we let God discipline us in the simple way we have just outlined. But this is not all. There is action and more action. Faith without works is dead. The next chapter is entirely devoted to step 12.
So one of the things is in order to really get through and to see the magic, what's happening here, you need to incorporate these things as you do your nines. Nines, your 8 and 9s and 11 and working with others, it will be the saving grace on an experience that will, for longevity. What happens in early sobriety around this area will determine what the rest of the course of your life looks like, right? Because if you go in with self, if you're able to do your 8 and 9s without 11, then you won't need an 11 later. If you don't need God now, you won't need them later. Like you hear people say, you got to do, the steps are in order for a reason. Try reading the book, right? The reason they're in an order is we look at this, then we prepare. It's like when you go buy something really expensive, you go look at it and then you prepare, right? You're going to get the paperwork, get everything in order, then you go act on it. And that's kind of like the amends, right?
Under the idea of fitting ourselves to be of maximum service to God and to those around us, is what we've just outlined in step 11 enough? Practical experience shows us that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. How many of you have a pen? Underline these words. Nothing will ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. You cannot transmit something you do not have. Right? If you are living in the outline we've just gone through tonight, you'll have something to transmit, right? Your frequency will become attractive to others. People will start approaching you at meetings and asking you questions. The way that you share in a meeting will change because you won't spend 5 minutes sharing about yourself. You'll start sharing about the experiences that you're having. I have worked with lots of people who have gotten all the way to the feeling better. And then the feeling better starts to dissipate and they don't understand what the problem is. But I'm praying. I'm doing all of the things that the pages on step 11 say that I'm supposed to do. Are you working with anybody else? Well, I'm not really ready for that. And I will tell you that Ebby got on a subway, right, from Manhattan to Brooklyn and carried this message to Bill at 2 months sober. So this idea that we need to just sort of get our senses and just, live this way of living for a little while before we, really try to help somebody else is bullshit. It is. It's bullshit, right? You cannot keep this if you don't give it away. That's a bumper sticker we love to give out. But this whole chapter opens up with some pretty strict language, right? Nothing will ensure immunity from drinking is intensive work with other alcoholics, right? Ebby knew that if he didn't get on that train and carry this message to Bill, he was in trouble, right? Bill knew that if he didn't pick up that phone in the Mayflower Hotel, he was in trouble, right? Every story that you hear has a story of feeling an overwhelming feeling of I'm going, maybe I'm not going to make it through this day, right? I'm not phoning my sponsor. I'm not running around trying to make myself feel better. I go find a newcomer, right? When the shit hits the fan, that's the first thing I do. I go to a meeting to find a newcomer. Make sense? So I think that probably the next meeting, were you planning on going back to the beginning, or can we spend some time in step 12?
Next meeting, we're going to incorporate the whole thing. How we do 11, how we work with other people and clean up the past when we apply it, how we're able to see past the moment and stay present enough to get access to move past the crippling part of self, right? Like what Bill talked about, what saved the day is when all else failed, right, he would find somebody to work with would save the day. How he had a different experience by incorporating these principles, regardless how he felt or thought, right, to have a different experience. I'm going to talk about some of my experience. Joanne's going to talk about some of her, and incorporating these things. That's what, when we read about step 8 and 9 in the book, they talked about some of their experience around that. We're going to talk about ours, and why we go find somebody new, why we're doing what we do, why we continue to do this after 9 years, 11 months, and why after 35 years, why people show up and continue to do this.
Just so that we're clear, at this point in the steps, we're out doing amends, right? We're clearing up the wreckage of our past. We're living in step 11. We're asking for the next right thought or action. We're pausing when agitated. And we are working with others. These are things that are all happening at once. We're not running around making amends and then maybe we'll get to the spiritual stuff later. And then when we feel better, we might approach somebody at a meeting.
Because who is it not about anymore? Us. We're in second stage recovery now. What was first stage recovery all about? What's our first obsession? Me. Now we need to make it about you. Anyways, we have a 7th edition. We're self-supporting through our own contributions. Next week, we're going to tie it all together. And let's close with something pretty powerful. What's the basis for a fantastic life, Joanne?
God.
Grant
me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Live long and prosperous. May the force be with you.